Hello everyone, my name is Filip Manuilov. Welcome to my channel. And this video will be a part 2 of me tasting the various teas that I had. So these will be the Tea Puers from Moychay. Let's get into it. Welcome to TeaTuesday. The first tea we have here is called Xiao, which you can see right here, and basically it means the older the better. And I guess just before I start drinking this tea, I want to thank again the Moychay team and Sergey, and also my dear brother who has brought this tea from Amsterdam. But obviously all the tea comes from China. He just had the opportunity to take it from the shop in Amsterdam. So we have this lovely little tea here. I'll just put a bit of water. To be honest, this particular part might be quite short. I said quite a lot last time. Maybe I'll actually get a chance to discuss the actual flavor of the tea. And maybe these would get more interesting. Because the last teas, they were quite uniform in their flavor. So what we got, and these ones, I think some of them are literally around the same price range, but they're definitely looking different. This one is from 2017 and it was pressed in 2023, so this tea is at least, well, hopefully 6 years old. Could be more, could be less, but around then. And yeah, I mean, let's go back to 2017. So many things have passed and changed since then. I guess it's also interesting to consider how tea can bring us back in time, make you remember different things, different occurrences and events that were happening in a particular period of the tea harvest. So I guess I wasn't in London in 2017, but I was still drinking tea for sure. Okay, let's give it a first brew. Packaging again is really well done. I think I didn't mention it last time, but I will mention it now, is that the packaging size and the whole Tea Puer size that they've done is smaller than the common package size. So the ordinary package size for puers and cakes, tea cakes, is usually 357 grams. But these ones are done with a slightly smaller proportion, so they're roughly 3 times smaller. And I just find that quite convenient because it gives us the opportunity to buy a lot of different teas without having to break them down and have the packaging, have just the whole tea for yourself, the whole cake. Because how it used to happen as the classic a classic cake could cost about €50, $50 just for one cake, and I mean, it's not crazy, but what happens is it becomes a bit more difficult to just buy lots of different cakes if you want the whole one, and you end up having to put them aside, to break them down in the shop and package them, and they'll just come in a bag, and I think it does lose a bit of the aesthetic of the actual essence in which they originally come. And I wouldn't say it's a very common thing. I've not seen many tea cakes that are 100 grams or even 50 grams, as like this one, for example. But I definitely don't think it's a bad idea. It just makes it an easier entry point for new people who start drinking tea, and for existing people who already drink tea. It's just a good one. I think it was a good idea. Don't know what they think about this in China, and I will probably look into it, see if there are many different variations of tea forms and presses in China and inland, because I have a friend who is right now in, I guess, Guangzhou. That'll be a bit of a shame if I say it wrong incorrectly. He can correct me. Or Hangzhou, something like that, in China, and he can let me know if they have different sizes of tea cakes there. But from personal experience, I know usually in China you can have different tea cakes or even tea bricks, and they could be up to 250 grams, they could be half a kilo, they could be large ones. I know they have some decorated cakes that come in large shapes, or just could be almost a log that is 50 kilograms, and these are usually not to be drinking, not for drinking. They could be a gift, or just to represent facilities of some factory and production. I would say it's a really good tea. Definitely has quite a lot of flavor to it. I think this one I could be naming a couple of particular things. I would already start by saying that it has some dark berries and dark fruit notes to it that are quite distinct, rather than an overall puer flavor. It is a bit more clear what flavor notes you can feel in it. And definitely I made it quite strong, because I just like to drink strong puer. Makes it quite energizing. And the aftertaste is definitely more present there. And I think that's because definitely the tea has aged already. So it's been some time. Yihao. Right, let's get on with the next tea. The next tea we have here is Amsterdam Nights. It's harvested in 2019, so this tea is younger. I think actually they were really in a similar, almost exact same price range as the one I just drank. Let's see what this turns out to be. Also, since I closed the window in my room, it's becoming quite hot. All the tea, I think the heater might be working as well. A little bit. It's alright. acetone is also quite well pressed. This tea is called Amsterdam Nights, as I mentioned, and I just want to say that my brother recently went to Amsterdam and he was telling me about the cycling traffic, how it's working in that particular city compared to London. And honestly, he said it's quite hectic down there, because everyone is just riding how they want, really don't respect the rules, cross all the red lights, all the traffic, just shouting. I thought it was quite funny, but that's basically because they don't have too many cars, I guess, compared to London, and that does make a difference. And I was also saying maybe they all just got a bit high and don't care about the traffic anymore. So that's the first brew. I'm just gonna pour it away as always. I guess it's always interesting to travel around the world, see different perspectives, different ways, and especially just how people live. So, for example, my friend from India was telling me how the traffic is insanely like hectic in India, especially smaller towns, because no one has a driving license, everyone's just shouting at each other, he said he has to keep honking, shout it through the window, and that's how he can drive, but no other way is possible. And I just found it quite funny, but that's the reality of life in a smaller town in India. And he said when he went back, he had he spent there quite a long time. So over the period of the virus, he just was staying there, and he said he had such a headache from just all the traffic and all the noises, and he was quite happy to be back here in that sense. Right, an update on the flavor of this tea. Come on, super blank. Honestly, it's got the color, but maybe I just need to brew it for longer. I'm not exactly sure what's going on here, because as compared to the previous one, this almost has no flavor to it, and I'm just giving my honest opinions. Obviously, they're all subjective and you might have different opinions, but some of you may have been drinking tea or could have been drinking tea with me, and genuinely they would know what kind of teas I like, what kind of teas I don't like. They might understand my perspective on some particular teas. Well, this particular one, I definitely wouldn't say it's my favorite. It's like good, it's alright. But even I'll probably just try to make it way stronger this time. But even it's not, it doesn't feel as much as a puer to me. But what I also find, sometimes when you're drinking tea and you're being subjective and you're experiencing a certain flavor on a certain day, you might experience a completely different flavor, or maybe a slight gradation on the flavor just by drinking on a different in a different time period, when you have a slightly different state of mind, slightly different perception of the world, and your soul is in a different state, and that would impact your perception of tea, because I think we do view this world and the things around us through the filter of our own perception and mind, and in that way you could have a different understanding of things, especially tea or different events that occur. As we all know, you could have pink glasses, or just to see, or just a rainbow kind of filter that just colors everything, but you're not exactly being realistic with things. So I guess on approaches to things and life, not just tea, it's always important to be understanding and be aware, and be aware of your thoughts, be aware of your concepts, be aware of your own personal filters that you put upon events and things. And I guess you would be the most conscious when you are placing these filters, but you are completely aware and you are completely conscious of how you do so. Because I guess it's our own nature of doing such things. We always like to color, to describe, and have our own associations and feelings about events and occurrences and things. That's partially what makes us human. And I think some people wouldn't quite know why they feel about some things in a certain way, what has brought them to a certain step. And it's always important to step away and realize what has made you draw certain conclusions and come to certain thoughts and ideas. And that always comes down to how you've been present in a moment. Honestly, I brewed this tea for a second time, and it definitely did open up. So if you're brewing this one, my recommendation would be to let it brew for longer, and some flavor would come out. Maybe the flavor was just a little bit shy and hiding within. But I'm done with this one, and let's move on to the next one. Right, so I'm back with the different tea. Next one will be this guy, Gongfu Shu Cha. Literally means the tea ceremony. Gongfu is a traditional way of a tea ceremony, Shu Cha, the Shu Puer. So it's a bit of a ceremonial Shu Puer, I guess. And then you know there is ceremonial matcha, for example. And that's probably how I would understand this particular tea. What's different about it? I feel like the press is a bit lighter. It is not as dense, so that might be quite interesting. And hopefully I like the flavor. Because in the end it's one of the important parts of the tea. We all do enjoy a nice cup of tea, tasty tea. Alright, just gonna put some of it here. I'm trying not to put too much, although I do think that I put quite a bit. But that's fine. I like it strong. Okay. All right. Has a almost a chocolatey flavor to it. I wonder how old this tea is. Just gonna give it a little wash. In the meantime, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, leave some comments, what you're thinking, what you want me to discuss next, because I mean in the end, if you like what I say, you might as well want to hear my opinions on some other topics, or not, and I'll just have to come up with some interesting ideas by myself. I have a couple of video ideas that I have in mind, and I do really enjoy this kind of format of a tea ceremony, where it could be a discussion of any topics in a nice and relaxing manner. It's just a good way to approach things. If you're not too alert, you're not too, in a way, too energetic, too nervous, but you're also really concentrated and your thoughts are just nice and clear, which is quite a good state to be in while doing this kind of discussions. And honestly, from a personal experience, when I'm drinking tea, I just have a good flow of thoughts on a nice wave. Which becomes not very abrupt, maybe not super clear as well. I'm not trying to state any dogmas in this video, and it's just a tapestry weaves through this conversation of ideas and thoughts, and they form something almost like a tea canvas. Right, you got this one. So from what I can see, it's quite light. Could have probably held it for longer. It's good. But honestly, again, the one we just had in the beginning is probably the one I like the most so far. It's quite neutral. I'm gonna add a new brew straight away. All good teas. I might be, what I'm thinking, I'm gonna do a little experiment. I might be ordering some random interesting teas that I find online, literally probably from any kind of shops I see. Probably could be from China. I maybe ask my friend to send something. Hello Tarun, if you're watching, send me his tea. But yeah, I'll be just ordering some experimental different teas that I haven't tried. For example, I really want to try the Shu Puer in a bamboo, or also in a bamboo leaf. There's also, I've heard there's one, I mean maybe I'm wrong, but I've heard there is one that is in a carrot. I think that could be quite interesting. I do miss some Shu Puer that is in a mandarin. Honestly, it's not considered a really outstanding tea, because the way they make it is they have this Shu Puer, which is probably of a average quality, but what happens to it, they put it in a mandarin just to kind of hide the average quality of the tea and make it a little bit interesting. And I think this process honestly does a good job, because you have all the citrus notes of the mandarin that is being infused into the Shu Puer, and it just turns out quite nice and flavorsome. So that's 2 teas that I want to try, or perhaps 3, and then I guess anything that's a bit more weird, bit more outstanding and less standard. Anything, maybe you can have some suggestions. Maybe you've seen some tea that you think is really interesting and worth trying. Leave a comment, leave your thoughts. If you're into tea in the first place as well. I'll probably not be doing any of the non-teas or that are kind of artificially flavored ones. I'm not a big fan of them, and well, not a fan at all, and they're just some average teas. They don't have any particular merits to themselves, and what factories are trying to do is, again, trying to sell them at any cost, and by spraying chemicals, I don't think it's a good business practice to do so. Some people like it, and I personally have no problem with it. You like what you like, definitely. But again, I'm not gonna be drinking those flavored teas, or probably not herb teas, because they're not technically teas. But anything tea related, I'm really open to try. So for example, I think there's some teas that have flowers in them, so like rose petals or anything like that, and generally tends to happen with lighter teas. But I'll be really looking forward to try something like that. And also I just thought about, maybe I could make a mix of my own in a way, because that's definitely a known practice. Some people add some flowers, or maybe a little, again, a piece of a mandarin, just to have a bit of a texture, like a bit of a citrusy flavor to it. And I definitely think it could be a really good idea to do so. Personally, I'm thinking right now about trying some tea with a grapefruit skin. That could be interesting, or just a range of citrus could be lemon, trying Shu Puer with lemon, trying Shu Puer with mandarin, trying Shu Puer with like orange, lime, and then I guess grapefruit. I do like grapefruit. Grapefruit could be really interesting. I think the grapefruit and Shu Puer could go quite well. I think lemon and probably lime would not be very interesting. However, you never know, and it could be an experiment that I'll make. Also, it's not very common. I mean, I'm saying you could be trying, but from a traditional perspective, I wouldn't say it's super common to be doing these kind of things. But I guess right now, the point why I always like the Chinese tea ceremony is that, again, it's quite flexible and then no harsh rules to it. Obviously, you can have somewhere a house that completely respects the rules of Gongfu Cha and the traditional Chinese tea drinking, where they have all the ropes and the specific movements, how the ceremony is performed there. So there's a way to pour tea, there are certain ways, because for example, as you can see here, I have quite a minimalistic approach and a setup. Here I literally just have the Chabing, which is this board where the excess tea pours away. I have the pitcher, or Chai you call it, or I think Gundao Bei is also called. Basically means Chai is the sea or the ocean of tea, so basically lots of tea. I will probably do a different video explaining what individual object in the tea ceremony is for, but as you can see, again, it's quite a minimalistic approach and setup. I have the teapot here, and I have a frogger teapot here, and obviously my teacup. And if I have more people joining, I would have multiple teacups and perhaps a bigger teapot. But then, in a traditional way, you could have all sort of tweezers, tongs, little brushes that you could just enjoy using them. I particularly never really been a big fan of them, but some people could be really into it and they really like it. And as I was saying about the flexibility of the tea approach, why I like it is that it allows you to just be and exist and do what you enjoy doing. So I do enjoy this tea ceremony in that particular way, and if I want to put lime, lemon or any citrus in my tea, it's definitely perfectly fine to do so. Because the point is to experiment, and it's not just with tea, it's in life in general. Definitely getting slightly better in the second brew, but still I'm a bit less impressed than I wanted to be. So yeah, this one is over, and I'll be just doing the next one after I clean the teapot. We reached the final tea from this bunch of teas from this little collection of new Shu Puers, and we have a Gongting Xiao Chabing, this little cute guy with a cat. Honestly, the packaging is super lovely, very well done. Hopefully the tea will be good as well. Let's get into this tea. Looks like I might be running out of water. So this guy is also pressed in 2023, but the harvest is from 2019. think it was mentioning that it has little buds, so maybe that will give a bit of an interesting flavor to it. Okay. I guess it's worth mentioning that one of my initial plans and ideas behind this video series is just the ability and just the whole process of me thinking and expressing my thoughts and ideas at the current moment of time. I just think it's quite an interesting thing to be observing and reflecting upon in the future, because obviously I think our minds, our ways of thinking will be altered with time. You might not really be having the exact same idea in the future, or you might not be remembering of your certain thought process of the past that happened some time ago, and in your mind you might be thinking that it happened in a certain way when in fact it happened in some other way. And I guess it's always important to be mindful of this, so this video series could be quite a valuable resource for me in the future, later down the line, just to see what I was up to, how I was thinking at this particular moment while drinking some particular tea. So this one, just put a little bit. Because I'm not really doing any cuts of this video, obviously just apart from the moments where I'm changing the water or changing the actual leaves, you might just see and observe how long I'm brewing particular teas. And I want to just mention that there isn't a particular set rule for doing so. Probably one of the best things that you could do is just drink more tea, feel it for yourself, see how you like it. Some people like lighter teas, some people like lighter brewed tea or stronger brewed teas. For example, I personally like the stronger brewed ones, just because it brings out the flavor a bit more and it becomes a bit more condensed. But maybe you want to be very delicate and you want to just experience the very small and neat nuances of the flavor, that you don't want to be oversaturating with the more apparent ones. So that's why I let it brew for a bit longer. I might be making a different video on how you can do it. Perhaps, definitely I will not be the first one to explain how to brew tea, but maybe for some of you who are just probably interested in tea or want to know the approaches of Chinese tea ceremony, this could be an interesting way to see, because especially here in the UK, it's not very common for people to be drinking Chinese tea, well, as everyone is drinking kind of Indian tea, and the way English people have always made tea. What is funny is that when I went to a museum with my brother, we went to Victorian Albert Museum, and we saw some very interesting samples of old Chinese crockery that was showing kaiwan and small teacups as well. And as they were brought to England in around 16th or maybe 17th century, and they were brought by tradesmen who obviously got tea. At that time, I think there is a story in some way that the Chinese always protected their tea, and how at some point the tea bush got stolen from China and then imported to India by the English Empire, and it was quite a whole operation. Maybe I'll tell the story about this at some point, do a bit of research, but basically what happened, they apparently stole some tea, but that's a different part. So I was mentioning the little teacups and the kaiwans that we saw in the museum, and there was a description added down below, and some alterations of the following crockery were produced, and they were standing nearby. And basically what happened is that the people down here were quite delicate, and they were getting burned by the hot tea, so they couldn't really hold the cup, which me and my brother, we thought it was quite funny and hilarious of these people to not be able to hold a little cup of tea. So that's how the handles appeared in them. They decided to put a little handle, and then probably they added a plate down the line. So perhaps the traditional way of tea drinking was not super uncommon in this land, but then with time they adapted, and obviously traditions changed, and they formed a sort of a different way of drinking tea, and the same thing happened in different countries. But that's how the world is. So, to mention a little bit about this tea, I mean, again, I quite like it, but it's nothing extraordinary. I kind of hoped a little bit more from that one. So, probably definitely not the best puer tea that I've had, and it's a bit sad. There was one particular tea that I did really like, but that one went away, and it honestly had an extraordinary flavor, so I'll be looking forward to getting some really nice and interesting Shu Puer, maybe from a bit pricier category and pricier range. Well, this particular tea it's got, I guess, a bit of a modest flavor, maybe, and I did brew it for quite some time. It's quite balanced again, very neutral in its presence. Nothing super outstanding, and just maybe I just drank too much tea already and nothing surprises me, because normally I don't been drinking so many different variations in such a short period of time, especially of the same tea, because maybe after 3 or 4 brewings that I've done of 3 different teas, it just kind of suppressed my tasting abilities of different aspects of the same kind of teas. Definitely can taste the stick here. It's quite mild. It's a really good everyday kind of tea. Definitely recommend it. Well, as I'm finishing this tea, I just want to say thank you for watching. Leave a like, subscribe. Also leave a comment if you have anything to share, and maybe I can just conclude my overall impression of the whole tea set that I have here. Overall, I really enjoyed them, and it was quite a, I think, valuable experience to be tasting them all almost at the same time. Obviously, I managed to spread it over a couple of days. Well, I don't normally tend to do that, and I definitely really enjoyed that. So I want to say that all these teas are well-rounded and very well composed in their flavors. I definitely have my favorite out of these couple of teas, and definitely was the one that I was drinking today. It's probably this one, Xiao. I would definitely claim it as the winner of this batch, as my personal favorite. Definitely between, I couldn't probably be stating the second and third, as they were all quite close, but this one to me is a clear winner. And if you get a chance to taste them, also let me know what you think. But yeah, that's the teas. I'm not gonna be comparing what kind of different qualities of certain teas. Again, if you watch the video, some of them were quite close, some of them had a bit more distinctive notes to it. But Xiao, in my opinion, is the best. So that was it. That was the tea review, and hope you enjoyed it. See you in the next video.